Hello guys and welcome. So what is espresso? Here's some espresso right here. The simplest observation is that it has two different layers. So the bottom layer is just the espresso liquid, so that's all the hot water, and then that top layer on top, that golden kind of brown yellowy layer, that's called crema. Crema is probably responsible for most of the taste because it's very volatile. If I just gave you a time lapse of say 5 minutes or so, all of this crema would basically disappear. Now it disappears in two ways. Number one is that it dissolves into that hot layer of liquid. The other way that it basically disappears is through evaporation. Because it's volatile, it's constantly evaporating off the surface here, and that's why it's responsible for a fair bit of taste, because your nose is also in relation with your tongue. They work together very closely to give you that sense of taste. So because it's volatile and it goes as a smell, as an aroma into your nose, it can be very, very beneficial in your holistic taste of the drink. So that's what espresso is, and that's kind of what you're aiming for as well. Okay, so what exactly is a double ristretto? Now, double ristretto just means restricted. So a double ristretto means a double shot, but restricted. And what that means is it's restricted the amount of water that's went through the double shot. So if you did a double shot, you're going to be looking at an extraction time of potentially 30 seconds. So 30 seconds, all that water is going to come through and you're going to get your 60 mils of espresso. However, if you did a double ristretto, you're using the same amount of coffee in the porter filter that you put into the machine and press the button. However, you've restricted that to about 20 seconds. So that can be responsible for a darker, richer flavor than a single shot. However, it doesn't have all that extra water as in a double shot does. The double ristretto is a perfect measurement in between a single and a double shot for a mid-size in between the small and the large. Alright, so before we even talk about this, let's go into detail about the porter filter. So this is the porter filter. We've got the basket in the middle. A little bit hot, but you can pull it out like that. That's what it looks like inside. That just pops on. These are the two spouts. I have used this a little bit today. So these are the two spouts here. That's where the espresso comes out of. And these two lugs, these are important because that goes into the machine, slides up, and then locks into place, these two lugs. Basically, look at this. So currently, I'm moving it around. There we go. Let's just fit in, and then you screw it in like that. And now, it's pretty strong. So that's how you put it in. How you take it out, just basically like that. Sometimes you might need a bit of a push. So we're going to be looking at small, medium and large. So you'll be able to see these buttons. I've got this calibrated for a double ristretto, this one calibrated for a double shot. This one has no real function, it's the continuous pour button. And we use this holding down with some of the other buttons for the settings inside the machine. So again, we've got our grinds there, put it in. We're going to do shot for a small one. Small ones get one shot, so press the double shot button. One of this gets the one shot in it, the other one gets the other shot. So that's slightly above the 30 mil mark. However, the crema is going to rapidly disappear. But look at that crema, that's a lot of crema there. And now it's the 30 mil mark. So one shot and one shot. So there's the 6 ounce, this is the 8 ounce, and we have the 12 ounce as well. So the 12 ounce would literally just require 2 shots of espresso. So that's the 12 ounce. That's got the 2 shots, 60 mils of espresso in there. One of the other considerations I'm going to quickly mention now, you're going to figure out pretty quickly in your career, but this, it's not going to fit underneath. So you have 2 options. Number 1, you can do the double shot into these glasses, and then when you're finished, pour them into the 12 ounce cup. 1 shot, 2 shots. Or, even though you can't stick it underneath like that, you can angle the cup and find the right spot. Now, I'm going to show you the 8 ounce. While I'm doing this, I'm going to talk through some of the concepts. So you want this in tight enough, this portafilter. If it's too loose, you're going to get some water come out through the sides. So that's in firm enough. You press the button here, which is the double ristretto button, and that's going to put 45 mils or 22.5 mils into each shot glass if we had them underneath shot glasses. So that's going to give us the 45 mils. Typically speaking, if this is calibrated correctly, it's going to take 25 to 35 seconds to go through for a 12 ounce, and it's going to take 15 to 21 seconds for a 8 ounce to kind of go through. Now, to get rid of this, sometimes it's a bit firm, like it's stuck in there. So instead of going like this and then going, oh, my wrist, you want to sometimes just use your palm. Just use this part here. That's all you need to do. The next part is, I always do this automatically because I've done this quite a few times, but you want to purge. You can use any of these buttons. Press once, a couple of seconds, press twice. You'll be able to see on the drip tray here, but that's all the liquid, that's all the espresso stuff that came from up inside the group head there. So that's good to get rid of. The next step is, this is nice and clean because I've already done it automatically, but we just want to wipe 2 places. You want to wipe inside and you want to wipe the lugs as well here, because this sits up inside. So if there's coffee grinds on there, then it's going to degrade the seals over time. We put that back in when we're not using it, and because I did mention that this stuff is here, if we just put a cup, I'm going to get an empty cup. If we just, actually, no, I'll even demonstrate one of these. If we were to put a mug, like one of these, underneath, right where we purged, that's going to give you some coffee grinds and some other things over time. So it's not the best, basically. So an example of a good extraction is for double shot, 25 to 35 seconds extraction, 15 to 25 seconds extraction for a double ristretto. And examples of bad extractions would include if this just came through with no time at all, if it came through in like 5 seconds, just splat, that would be bad. Another way that this extraction could be bad is if you didn't put the portafilter in tightly enough, so it didn't compress the rubber seal and it allowed some of the liquid to escape while you're extracting. That might mean that you might get some coffee grinds in the bottom of the glass. It might not affect the taste as much, but it may affect the crema, and when the customer finishes their drink, they might see a lot of coffee grinds at the bottom of their glass. We aim for a range, I've mentioned this range a few times in the video so far, for a good extraction. You need to be able to look at the espresso and judge if it's going to be suitable or not for the customer. It might come through in 10 seconds, but it might have a really good crema and might be visually appealing, or it might come through in 35, 40 seconds and still look very presentable. Basically, by keeping most of your extractions within these extraction times, you've got the greatest chance of getting the best espresso for your customer. So constantly try to adjust the grinds and keep it within these ranges for maximum success. So this rubber seal this is actually what it would look like. So pretend this is the inside of the machine here. This comes up and pushes and squeezes, and that forms a seal. So because of that, we're not going to get any water escaping out the sides. That's where it normally sits. These seals right now, they're bendy. However, if this was one of the seals that's in there currently, that's exposed. This is very hot. Like, I do not want to touch it, otherwise I'm going to burn myself. But if I had one of those seals straight out of there into my hand right now, it would just crack. It just splits so easily. That's because of the temperature and stuff like that. So realistically, you would expect a seal to last 6 months or so. So currently I'm going to put it in. There we go. That's sealed. However, in 6 months' time, if I try and put it in and I press the button, it's going to leak water out the sides, because it's not going to be, the structural integrity of the seal is going to be compromised. It's not going to jam as much. There's going to be no resistance. It's just going to be firm, stiff, and inflexible, which is not what you want for rubber. So that's one of the things that you can increase your chances of maximizing your espresso. The next thing I'm going to mention is drinks. So for certain drinks, such as lattes, cappuccinos, flat whites, etc., crema is important. However, the one that crema is most important for is something like a long black. I'm going to demonstrate two different approaches here. So this one's going to lie down, this one I'm going to put right up to the surface. So the differences right here are quite subtle. So the one in my right hand, that had the crema free falling into it, and the one on the left hand, it had the crema just going straight in. I'm going to retry this, but using 2 cups instead. The cups are a little bit shorter than the latte glasses, so the difference from holding one of the glasses or holding one of the cups up to the spout so that the crema just basically slides onto the surface is going to be a lot more pronounced, because the one that it falls into, that crema is going to go underneath the surface and readily dissolve. So we should see a very big difference between these two. This is a little tip to help improve your extraction, because as we see, we're using the same portafilter, the same grind, the same tamping. The only difference here is that one cup is being held up to the spout and one is just letting the espresso fall straight into it. If you want to maximize your chance of a good espresso, a good crema on top of a long black, then this is one of the ways to do it. You can already see a bit of a difference between the two. There we go. So these are both quite good still. However, the one on the right is very pale. The one on the left is okay. The one on the left has a bit more crema. The one on the right's crema is already disappearing. The reason why this is the case is simply because the one on the right had all of that liquid just fall down. The one on the left is a little bit better. As we move this along anti-clockwise, the number goes from 7 to 6 to 5. So the number gets smaller, which means that the coffee grinds get smaller. If we do the other way, we move this way, which is clockwise, then this number here gets bigger, 7, 8, 9. And as the number gets bigger, it gets coarser. To describe the effect that this has, if we get coarser coffee grinds, when you pack them in, there's going to be more space between them. You might need to look at this under a microscope, but that's the case. When the space between them is bigger, that means more water can go through faster. So this means that the extraction time is sped up when the coffee gets coarser. when the coffee gets finer, when we tamp it in, all the coffee grinds sit together a lot tighter than if it was coarser. And when it's very tight like that, and there's not much space in between, the water can only go through at a very slow rate, at least at a slower rate than if it was coarse coffee. This has the effect of increasing the extraction time. By increasing the extraction time, it gives the water more time to extract all the different components that we want in our coffee, and some of the components perhaps that we don't want, if it takes a little bit longer than that, to come through into our crema. Ideally, we want the coffee grinds to not be too coarse. We also want them to not be too fine either. It's a constant balance between the two. You need to constantly adapt the grinder throughout the day for humidity, the different users of the grinder, and different batches of beans can be slightly different as well. You might not be able to see very clearly, but here we have our display. So on the left here, I've done a double shot, which has went through at 25 seconds, which is really good. These ones, they're just empty at the moment. In this example here, I'm illustrating the point of trying to time your milk to be finished at the same time as the extraction. Either one of these you don't want sitting around for too long. So in this example, I showed you that I've steamed up some milk and the milk has got to the right temperature just as the extraction has finished. Our job is all about timing. Another fun thing is, haven't even mentioned this, but this, here we go. So, pretend that I've got some coffee grinds in here, right? So what you want to do is right here, you want to hit it. You want to hit it here. You don't want to hit it all the way here because you don't want this basket to fall straight out in there and you have to go down and try and grab it to get it. No, so you want to go kind of middle. You're going to get rid of some of it. So I've just purged. The next step is to knock it. So it's still in there. It doesn't take that. One solid bang, you got most of it out. That's why you have this, and you can literally just very quickly clean. Then it goes back into the machine. So realistically, say this is full of coffee, purging right now, knocking out, back into the hand. You can do all sorts of fun tricks. You can throw between hands, you can flick into another hand, flick into the other hand. Especially when it's empty, there's nothing really to worry about, except do be wary that sometimes you can get some espresso liquid on the spouts. So if you do flick it around like that, make sure you're flicking around with this in front of your body, because if you're flicking it onto yourself, that is going into you. So flick it around and then put it straight back into the machine. So this is part of the espresso extractions. Your grinds need to go somewhere. So this is quite sizable. One hand or two hands. You need two hands. Lift it up. That is all the coffee grinds. Use coffee grinds for a number of purposes. Use them as a fertilizer. Apparently they're really good for mushrooms. You might get the occasional customer ask you what do you do with your coffee grinds, and they ask if they can have a bag or two from you. Done, and just put the lid straight on top. That's all it is. Simple as that. Some people have a smaller one that just sits on the bench. So my intention for this video was to give you some extra tips about espresso extractions, some of the parameters that you can change, and some of the things that you can watch out for. Just especially as a barista coming into the workplace and not having that familiarity over time with certain parts of why we do what we do. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.